This is the story of how a leaked sex tape, a billionaire's secret grudge, and a professional wrestler's humiliation combined to destroy one of the most powerful media companies on the internet. Back in 2002, a British journalist named Nick Denton founded Gawker Media out of his apartment in Soho, Manhattan. What started as a snarky gossip blog grew into a digital media empire valued at over $400 million, with properties like Jezebel, Deadspin, Kotaku, and its flagship site, Gawker. The company pulled in nearly $49 million in revenue by 2015 alone. Denton, who paid himself just $60,000 a year until 2012, held roughly 30% of the company, which gave him a paper net worth of $120 million. Gawker's brand was built on one principle: radical transparency. They published what others wouldn't, named names, and never flinched. That fearlessness would destroy them. In December 2007, a Gawker editor named Owen Thomas published an article on Valleywag, one of the company's blogs, with the headline, "Peter Thiel is totally gay, people." Thiel, the billionaire co-founder of PayPal and early Facebook investor, was publicly outed. But it wasn't actually the article itself that cut deepest. It was a comment. Nick Denton personally posted beneath the piece, writing, "The only thing that's strange about Thiel's sexuality, why on earth was he so paranoid about its discovery for so long?" That comment sat in the back of Peter Thiel's mind for nearly 4 years. He would later admit, it was never about the Owen Thomas article. It was the Nick Denton comment. Privately, Thiel began referring to Denton and Gawker as the MBTO, the Manhattan-based terrorism organization. And on April 6, 2011, his vague desire for retribution crystallized into something concrete. An Australian businessman named Aaron D'Souza brought Thiel an idea: fund lawsuits against Gawker. Not just one lawsuit, but multiple cases, strategically chosen, designed to find the weakest point in Gawker's legal armor. Thiel committed $10 million to the effort. He just needed the right case. Enter Terry Jean Ballia, better known as Hulk Hogan. In 2006, Hogan was secretly recorded having sex with Heather Clem, who was married at the time to radio personality Bubba the Love Sponge. Bubba later testified he'd burned the video to a DVD, written Hogan on it, and stuck it in a desk drawer. 6 years later, on October 4, 2012, Gawker editor A.J. Delario published a 2-minute excerpt from the 30-minute tape, including 10 seconds of explicit sexual content. Expert testimony would later show the clips were viewed over 4.5 million times across various platforms, not counting the estimated 2.5 million views on Gawker's own website. Hogan's attorneys sent a cease and desist letter demanding the video be taken down. Nick Denton refused, citing the First Amendment and arguing the accompanying commentary had news value. In April 2013, when a judge ordered the post removed, Gawker publicly declared, "A judge told us to take down our Hulk Hogan sex tape post. We won't." This was the case Thiel had been waiting for. 11 days after the video was posted, Hogan's legal team, led by attorney Charles Harder and trial lawyer Ken Turkle, filed suit. The case eventually landed in the Circuit Court of Pinellas County, Florida. And on March 7, 2016, the trial began. What followed over the next 2 weeks was devastating for Gawker. Hogan testified that he was completely humiliated by the publication. His attorney Turkle later recalled how his client, this massive mustachioed icon of professional wrestling, broke down crying as the verdict was read. Turkle explained the core of their argument. 8-year-old kids were Googling Hulk Hogan and WrestleMania, and they were getting a sex tape. But Gawker's own witnesses inflicted the most damage. A.J. Delario took the stand and delivered what may be the most catastrophic deposition testimony in modern media history. When asked if he could imagine a situation where a celebrity sex tape would not be newsworthy, Delario responded, "If they were a child." The attorney pressed him, "Under what age?" Delario's answer, 4. That exchange played directly to a 6-person jury of 4 women and 2 men who were already skeptical of Gawker's editorial judgment. On March 18, 2016, the jury sided with Hogan, awarding him $115 million in compensatory damages, $60 million of which was specifically for emotional distress. 3 days later, they added another $25 million in punitive damages, including $10 million from Nick Denton personally, $140 million total. Against a company whose entire balance sheet showed just $33.8 million in assets. Less than 3 months later, on June 10, 2016, Gawker Media and its subsidiaries filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Nick Denton followed on August 1st, filing for personal bankruptcy as well. By August 16th, Univision Communications purchased Gawker Media's assets for $135 million at a bankruptcy auction. 6 days later, on August 22nd, Denton himself wrote Gawker's final post, titled "How Things Work." The site went dark. When Peter Thiel's role as the secret funder was revealed by Forbes in May 2016, it ignited a fierce debate. Thiel called his backing of Hogan's lawsuit one of my greater philanthropic things that I've done. He said it was less about revenge and more about specific deterrence. Critics saw something far more dangerous: a billionaire using the legal system to silence a media outlet he personally despised. The case brought the practice of third-party litigation funding into mainstream conversation and raised uncomfortable questions about who gets to decide what the press can publish. The final settlement came on November 2, 2016, with Gawker paying Hogan $31 million to avoid the uncertainty of appeals. Nick Denton emerged from personal bankruptcy through a separate settlement with Hogan in March 2017. The ripple effects, though, extended far beyond these two men. Legal scholars have called the case a turning point. Samantha Barbas, a University of Iowa law professor, observed that the Hogan case really started this trend of libel and privacy lawsuits being weaponized to kind of take down media organizations. It showed that juries could side with a public figure's privacy rights over press freedom, even when the published material was true. As for Gawker itself, the domain was purchased in 2018 for just $1.35 million. It relaunched in 2021 under Bustle Digital Group, only to fold again 18 months later. In 2023, the brand was bought by a Singapore-based venture capital firm. Today, it exists as little more than a digital ghost. And Nick Denton? In a 2025 interview, he offered a surprisingly candid reflection. He admitted he was deeply ashamed of the Hogan video, and that part of him saw the logic behind the people who were trying to put Gawker.com out of business. He said he was relieved when Gawker.com was shut. It was time. I wasn't able to do it myself. He's now selling his iconic Soho apartment and moving to Hungary with his husband and 2 children. Looking back, Denton said Peter Thiel actually did him a favor. The $140 million judgment that bankrupted Gawker also gave him what he called a clean exit, a forced off-ramp from a company whose flagship brand had slipped out of his control. This case reshaped the relationship between media, privacy, and power in America. It proved that the First Amendment isn't an absolute shield, that juries don't always sympathize with the press, and that in the right circumstances, a single lawsuit can bring down an empire. Whether that's justice or a warning sign depends entirely on where you stand.